Super weird scenario. Both of these box body Mustangs still have Ford engines in them, and one's supercharged and one is turbocharged. Figured kind of after already having the turbocharged one on the dyno that I'll just combine both of these videos together. So let's do a turbocharger versus supercharger video. The turbocharged car is a street car. The supercharged car is a race car. Turbo car is manual. Supercharged car is automatic. Turbo car is on pump gas and intercooled. Supercharged car is on cam 2 and has methanol injection since it has no intercooler. Turbocharged car has fuel system issues currently, and the supercharged car has had fuel system issues last time it was here that we're hoping will be corrected this go around. So we'll find that out soon enough. And I guess worth noting is the supercharged car has enough rear gear in it to make it flip over. So just that in itself would make these two cars extremely different between one another. Due to the wastegate placement on the turbocharged car with the on3 kit, it has boost creep issues, and given that this is a supercharger, just naturally it has belt slip issues. So the boost is kind of doing the exact opposite thing on both cars. So one's just constantly falling off, and then the other one is just constantly going up. So I'll keep that in mind as well. And if I'm being completely honest, I had no intentions of doing this video this way, but the turbocharged car had problems almost as soon as we got started, and it would make for a 3-minute long video. So we'll combine these two and, I don't know, just do something a little different. All right, so I guess we'll start with cold start, and we got closed loop turned off, and obviously the LERN's turned off. This thing cold started pretty well before, so the idle side of it should be pretty close, I would like to think. So let's see if we need to make any fueling adjustments. Oh, I'm gonna push the clutch in on this. Pretty close. I actually changed the target air fuel ratio more than anything. It's a little lean, so change that. Now we're right on the money. Let's see if I can record the screen. See the actual air fuel's bouncing around a little bit, but following it pretty close. This doesn't need to be really exact, it just needs to run good. That's pretty good. The idle's still pretty high. It'll come down a little bit. So I'm just going to keep an eye on it as it continues to warm up. And if we need to make any changes, we can do it over here in the cooling ridge. Which right now we got a pretty big jump here, so let's do this. We'll let it keep warming up. And now you can see we're almost to 100% on our coolant enrichment, so we're almost warmed up all the way. Closed loop is now active. It was like 2 or 3%, now it's a little bit higher, so we'll touch a fuel out of there. The LERN table's not doing anything, it's turned off. I'm not sure why it is. It's picked up a little bit, but on certain cars it seems like the software kind of hesitates a little bit. It pauses and runs a little bit choppy. And then when it does that, it also makes making live changes like just kind of weird and quirky. So we're pretty good here. The big thing is when doing cold start, you really have to get the fuel table dialed in first, and then come back and do the cold start. But since I've already been in here and messed with this, I knew that the fuel table, at least the shape of it, was going to be pretty close. And it appears the injector data was in the ballpark because it, you know, we were able to change injector sizes without having to completely start all over again as far as the fuel table goes. You'll know in a hurry when you put in the wrong injector information because everything's all jacked up. And just because you get injector data from the manufacturer doesn't always mean that it's 100% right, so keep that in mind. Yeah, we're basically no correction right now, so we're in good shape. All right, let's start going through the fuel table now while we're driving. Last time the supercharged one was here, we maxed out the fuel system. We got up to like maybe 90-95% injector duty cycle. However, even though the air fuel ratios were still showing good, it just didn't run right, and it acted like it was out of fuel. So this is actually a little bit of a unique scenario where we're going to see if, even though we weren't actually going lean, or at least the sensor wasn't sensor slash ECU wasn't reading fast enough to pick up the lean condition. Everything about it felt lean, so kind of throwing some parts at it, so to speak. I mean, either way, we were over 90% duty cycle, so we needed to do injectors. And while he was at it, he just replaced the fuel pump because the other fuel pump in it was, you know, 1,040 years old. When it came back, it actually cold started about as awful as possible. Initially, I was like, damn, that's a pretty significant difference just by switching injectors. Once I plugged up to the computer, rather than changing the injector size in the current tune that it left here with, it actually, they just loaded up a whole new tune from the Wizard or whatever. So kind of started all over again, loaded up the original tune with the old injectors, changed the injector scaling, you know, kind of went through it all. I'm still gonna sync the timing just to be safe. You never know what people do nowadays, so we're gonna make sure we're good there. And this thing's real finicky to get idle. So I have 3-4 different custom tables, all doing different things, and so far it's idling pretty well. The other thing that's a little bit interesting with this car is it takes the O2 sensor 45 hours to warm up. So when you're trying to adjust the cold start, you're just basically going off of touch, feel, and smell, because there is no referencing the O2 signal to, you know, figure out what's actually happening. So it's always fun when you gotta do it the old school way. All right, timing set, we're good to go. The goal on this one isn't really to make a whole bunch of power, especially with these blowers. They just kind of make what they're gonna make. There's not a whole lot you can do about it. If any of you ever watched any of my other videos, you've probably seen that I'm a huge fan of the father-son projects, and that's exactly what this one is. So last time I was here, probably spent 5 times as much time on this thing as I should have, just kind of trying to power through it, but we needed some parts. And so hopefully everything goes well this time. I'm gonna do a little bit of part throttle stuff, probably won't film any of that, and then we'll go right into making some full throttle runs, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that this makes more than 300 horsepower or whatever it was last time. So I'd say anything in the 400s is on par with what they were shooting for. So let's see what happens. Let's see if it starts worth a damn. This thing also sounds like a damn Pro Mod. When he's brought it and got it off the trailer, like I legitimately like thought maybe I scheduled some crazy car that I forgot about or something, but it was this. It sounds awesome. Idle's rock solid now. Before it would shut off no matter what you did. Oh yeah. It's also real snappy off idle now. Last time it was here, it wasn't. I'm halfway wondering if maybe it didn't have some like bad injectors, more so than them just being the wrong size. Because on paper they should have worked. It would have been a little bit close, but it acted like it was out of fuel altogether. Let's see what happens. Let's take a look at this log. This is basically almost untouched other than some predictions of what I thought was going to happen given by the amount of fuel I was giving it with the other injectors and pump. I made 395 on that run, and just looking at it from here, overlaying with the other graph, it's picked up tremendously. And if we look here at the log, fuel is a little choppy. That looks more like sampling rate to me than anything else. And this is good. I actually took like 20% out, and we still need to take a little bit more. And if you look, it's pretty, up until here at the top end, it's pretty consistent, roughly 5% or so. Yeah, and then if you look at this green line, you can see it just dives right into the toilet. That's our boost. So it makes, what, 11 pounds I think it was? Yeah. And then it drops by the top of the run, it drops all the way to 8. So when you're only running 11 pounds, to lose, you know, a few PSI is pretty significant. The way that falls off, that almost looks like the blow-off valve's opening or something. We could probably just make almost like a global change, take a few percent out, try it again. We're probably still a little too far out on fueling to start playing with timing, so I'll make another run with just fuel changes, then we'll start playing with the ignition a little bit. Here's our gain so far. So here's torque. This is all like converter flash. Let's get rid of that. So here's our difference in power, which looks like we hit it with 300 shot of nitrous. So we'll just basically call that 100 horsepower. But the biggest thing is that before it would get to around here and it wouldn't want to rev any further. And now it looks like it's laying over real hard up top, but that's because the boost is falling off. Yeah, all in all, to have 100 horsepower gain with less timing, because I pulled 3 degrees of timing out of it before I started today, and with the same target air fuel ratio, you know, to pick up 100 horsepower, I think it might have been dealing with some injectors that, you know, had a cylinder or two that basically weren't doing anything. Even though all the plugs showed that they are firing, it's not like they were dead, but we're back on the right track now. I swear I thought that said, have you crashed a Ford lately? Just to change this video up a little bit, I prefer to do this manually, but we'll try to use the learn table and use the dyno to hold at different RPM points and kind of plot it all out. Let's see how it wants to react. Bring this down a little bit. Update rate really slow on the learn table, so you can see it takes a while to kick in. You get much better data that way. dyno is really nice. You can see that that could take a whole lot of time out of this. So even though we have this learn table filled out, I'm not going to transfer it over. I'm still going to do it manually, and we need to let this thing cool off a little bit. This radiator must not be too up to the task here. So basically, I ignored the learn table. You can go back and forth and look at it as like a reference. I mean, you can do whatever the hell you want, I don't care, but this is the way I do it. So our idle was pretty good. You can see we got more of a ramp in on the fueling up here because it was pretty rich in this area. And then down here, this area was pretty good. And over here, our table was kind of going progressively going up with RPM. So we found the spot at which it kind of wanted to at least flatten off. I haven't started going on a decline yet, but looking at the shape of these curves will kind of really help you once you get used to it. A lot of people get all worried about the colors. I don't really bother that too much. Now it is nice, like if you had like a random spot right here that's red, like, you know, you have a big giant hole in the table. And then if we look at the fuel stuff, you know, based off of this, it's pretty safe assumption that you're going to be making peak torque somewhere in this range, and then we'll be tapering off with RPM. I think I'm going to call it quits there with recording any of this. So basically we did our initial run to figure out kind of where we're at. Now we make these big huge clumps of changes, which kind of should get us into the ballpark, and then after that I'll you know, kind of quote unquote fine tune as much of it as I can, and then we'll move on to the full throttle stuff. So I'm going to finish all this up, and then we'll start up again once we start making some sweep runs. We got the part throttle stuff all real close. Usually as I'm like going through the gears to get it up to speed to make the runs, I still keep an eye on the part throttle stuff, make any additional touch-ups as needed. Did not touch any of the fueling really above like 3,000, 3,500 RPM full throttle. So we're going to make a little baby run, and just keep an eye on it. If it looks like our correction and stuff's getting out of hand, then we'll stop and make some adjustments beforehand. And then I pulled some timing out of it, which I always do every time I put a car on the dyno, just out of habit. So let's make our first part throttle run, or full throttle run now. And the curve is just perfectly linear. Let's take a look at the log. You can see, well, I have the dyno loading it up before we begin the run here. Our target, an actual match with no correction. Once it releases, it's like in the toilet rich. Then tries to get itself back in line. And then this is kind of suspect right here. I don't remember if this has a fuel pressure sensor on it, so I'm going to check fuel pressure first. Luckily this does have a fuel pressure sensor on it. You can see down here. Let's graph it. You see it starts trying to come up with boost. And right, let's zoom in a little bit. So here's our air fuel trace. You can see, or our closed loop correction trace starts skyrocketing up, and our fuel pressure coincidentally at the same time starts dropping like a rock. So we're kind of finished before we even get started on this one. Oh boy. So at 13 pounds of boost, our fuel pressure is lower than, you know, just sitting at idle. So we got some major fuel system problems on this. There's nothing I can do about that. Well, that's a bummer. So the guy that does the majority of the work on this one just feeds me cars left and right. He's got like 5 or 6 of them that need to all be taken care of. So this one will go back. They'll redo fuel system. It has rails and a good regulator, a decent pump. So I don't know if it's like a filter issue or a king to line or just the lines themselves, but whatever it is, they're gonna have to take care of it. They'll bring down one of the other cars and we'll go from there. But that's unfortunately going to be it for this video. I'm basically going to make the same run with the fueling changes. The only difference being is I went from 11.6 to 11.8 on the target air fuel. Boost is real low and it has meth injection, so we'll just see if it's a worthwhile thing to do. Hopefully the boost will be stable enough to compare the two runs. 407. So assuming that the boost was the same, it liked the leaner air fuel ratio. I'll compare the logs here in a second. If we overlay the runs, you can see we're full throttle on both. I didn't rev this one out quite as high because it's just not making any power out there. Here's our boost overlay, which you can see looking at the fuel pressure, that the boost is the same. Here's our target air fuel difference. And our closed loop, tightened up a little bit. So we'll still make some further adjustments out there. So on the next run, I'm gonna put a little bit of time in it. Here's before, here's our 11:6 air fuel ratio, here's our 11:8 air fuel ratio. Target air fuel ratio is an interesting one to play with because it is absolutely not one size fits all. More often than not, when you lean them out like that, they don't pick up much of anything. So that's a pretty substantial gain compared to what I'm used to seeing. Last time I was here, I swapped, tightened belts, did all of the normal nonsense. But like I said, it kind of looks like a blow-up valve's opening, and then now that I look down here, it's got one of these like 1999 Volkswagen blow-up valves or whatever they are. So this was my car, I definitely replaced that. .416, a little better. Here's all of our runs overlaid. And it just kind of dies out here, but if the blow-off valve or something is opening, it makes all the sense in the world. I'm going to throw a set of plugs in it. Picked up power with timing, so we'll try a little bit more. So we'll get a fresh read on a new set of plugs. Make sure we're not going to blow ourselves up. Now keep in mind, this is a younger kid going to be driving this. To my knowledge, has never made a pass down the racetrack. So, you know, we don't want this thing to make 100,000 horsepower. That side was easy. This side is a royal pain in the ass. I had the plugs out of this thing probably 15 times last time I was here. You would like to assume that it would pick up a couple horsepower for some new plugs. And cooling off from the amount of time it took to change the plugs. And we're going to put a little bit of timing in it, make a run, see what it does, pull some plugs, and make our next decision based off of that. The main reason it started so bad with his Wizard tune is the wideband reached 35 to 1 for a really long time after it starts up, and they had closed loop enabled the whole time. So the thing's just trying to launch a ton of fuel into it. So I've obviously been having to wait for the sensor to start functioning before we can start making the runs. The battery died in the middle of that one, but 424. Previously, new injectors, different target air fuel ratio, a little bit of timing, new plugs, and a little bit more timing. And based off of these plugs, we can still put a bunch more timing in it. So we'll try just a little bit more. All right. Made 449, so it looks like we'll pull out some more plugs. How much that one picked up everywhere, plus, see, these all kind of overlaid on top of themselves, and now all of a sudden it's way higher. So either I was further off on timing than I thought this thing was going to want to be, which race gas and meth injection is possible, or the boost went up a little bit higher on that run. Last time it was here, we'd see a huge fluctuation in boost run to run. Once I switched belts, it seemed to stabilize a little bit, but that looks like boost, not timing. So I'll check the log and see. Still got nothing on the plugs, so we'll try a little bit more timing. Still gonna double check the boost though. All right, if we look at the dark green line here, this is our boost. And you see we got 2-3 more PSI, and it starts leveling off a little bit. So the timing definitely helped, but there was a little bit more boost, so it wasn't a total apples to apples comparison there. But the plug still's happy, so we'll try a little bit more timing. 67. This thing's making me look like a jackass. Fuel correction spot on. It goes real lean on tip in, but it's almost like this O2 sensor does whatever the hell it wants, part throttle. This is leaded fuel. It's possible the sensor's just dying, but it seems like everything smooths out once you go full throttle. Alright, yeah, boost is the same as it was last run, which was higher than all of the previous runs. Damn, yeah, this thing's doing pretty good. I guess maybe I don't have quite as much timing in it as I thought. I did start pretty low just to be on the safe side. And the ironic part is with the other fuel injectors, you put as much timing in it as you wanted, it'd pick up anything. Each time I put timing in, it likes it, so let's do one more round of timing, I guess. Just keeps getting happier. Plugs still look good. Maybe I should have been adding more timing each time instead of baby stepping into it so much, but I'd always much rather make more runs than get aggressive and find out you went too far. It's got to stop making power at some point, right? Pretty damn serious gain, both from just playing with the timing and obviously from last time it was here with the crappy injectors. So I'm glad to see it all worked out. Mainly just to make sure I'm not crazy. This one kind of had me racking my brain as to how all of the air fuel ratios and stuff could look so good but run as if it was lean and just literally not even want to rev. Let's take a look at where we're at now versus where we were last time, and then we'll compare it with the turbo car. It makes peak power so early because the boost falls off. If this thing would continue holding the boost, it'd make a ton of power. So here is before and after with the new fuel system. It's like 160 horsepower. The other thing that's even more interesting is where these runs were stopping here. This wasn't just letting off there. That was like almost acted like a rev limiter. Like it wouldn't actually rev any further. Now it revs, you know, it looks worse than it is because boost is falling, but you know, it'll rev as high as you want it to. It's a little bit interesting. There's a ton of gear difference. There's a ton of drivetrain differences. Biggest one being torque converter. But again, this has like no boost down here and then progressively rises with RPM because of boost creep. This one hits pretty hard early on and then falls off, and ironically they both make right about the same power. So very far from a good comparison. So I know everyone's going to comment and say some trash like that, but looking at those two graphs, it's sort of what you would expect. It's almost worst case scenario on both of them, but with the supercharger everything's moved to the left, and with the turbocharger everything's moved to the right. So me personally, I would take a turbocharger over a supercharger any day. However, given our two terrible examples of a supercharger and a turbo, I think the supercharged graph looks like it would be more fun to drive, and these couldn't be any two different cars. One's clearly just a street driven, you know, could drive it every day kind of car, and then this thing will probably never see the street at all. So two totally different animals, but either way, a little unhappy with the way the O2 sensor is reading and performing. Actually, I have closed loop just turned all the way off because it's doing more harm than good. But other than that, that's going to do it for this video. As always, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.